The encounter. The stars stretched endlessly before the viewscreen of the UES Pathfinder as it drifted through the uncharted regions of the Cygnus Arm. Captain Nora Chen stood with her hands clasped behind her back, dark eyes fixed on the swirling gases of a nebula that humanity had only recently discovered. After 15 years in the United Earth Space Force, she still felt that familiar tightening in her chest whenever they ventured into the unknown. "Captain, we're picking up unusual energy signatures from the fourth planet in the system ahead," announced Lieutenant Rivera from the sensor station. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, bringing up detailed readings. "It's artificial. Definitely not natural formation." Nora straightened. "Life signs." "Yes, ma'am. Billions of them. And the energy output suggests advanced technology. Possibly level 7 or 8 on the technological development scale." A murmur rippled through the bridge crew. Humanity had barely reached level 6. Faster than light travel was still new to them, developed just 30 years ago. In all their explorations, they had encountered primitive life, bacterial colonies, even the ruins of extinct civilizations, but never a thriving, advanced species. "Dr. Jackson, your assessment." Nora turned to her science officer. Elias Jackson looked up from his station, his weathered face creased with concentration. At 58, he was the oldest member of the crew and had dedicated his life to xenobiology and first contact protocols. "We should proceed with caution, Captain, but this could be it. What we've been searching for, intelligent life, contemporaneous with our own." Nora nodded. "Lieutenant Kwan, take us into a wide orbit. Lieutenant Rivera, open all standard greeting frequencies and broadcast the first contact package." The tension on the bridge was palpable as the Pathfinder approached the blue-green world. It reminded Nora of Earth, though the continents were shaped differently, and there were 3 small moons rather than 1. Signs of civilization were evident even from orbit: sprawling cities, massive structures, and orbital platforms. "Captain," Rivera's voice was hushed with awe. "They're responding." The view screen flickered, and for the first time in human history, an alien face appeared before them. The being had silvery blue skin, large almond-shaped eyes that shimmered with an inner light, and fine, delicate features. No hair covered its elongated head, but intricate patterns adorned its skin. "Greetings, explorers," the alien spoke, its words translated by the ship's eye. "I am High Envoy Solara of the Arcadian Confluence. We welcome you to our world." Within hours, the Pathfinder had established official diplomatic contact. The Arcadians seemed remarkably similar to humans in their thinking, despite their physical differences. They invited a delegation to their capital city, and after careful consideration, Nora agreed. The landing party consisted of Captain Chen, Dr. Jackson, Security Chief Commander Reyes, and Communications Specialist Lieutenant Pottle. The Arcadian city was a marvel of engineering: crystalline towers that caught the light of their sun and scattered it in prismatic patterns, vehicles that floated silently above the ground, and public spaces filled with what appeared to be art and music. "Your civilization is impressive," Nora said to High Envoy Solara as they walked through a garden of plants that responded to movement, shifting colors, and shapes. "We're honored to be your guests." "The honor is ours, Captain Chen." Solara replied with a gesture that their cultural database suggested indicated respect. "It has been many cycles since we encountered a new spacefaring species. We find your kind fascinating." Over the next week, the humans and Arcadians exchanged knowledge and culture. The aliens seemed eager to learn about Earth and humanity's history. They offered technological insights, medical advancements, and astronomical data that would have taken humans centuries to discover on their own. "It seems too good to be true," Dr. Jackson murmured to Nora during a private moment. They were standing on a balcony overlooking the alien city, the third moon rising on the horizon. "They're giving us everything we ask for." "You suspect deception." Nora kept her voice low. "Not deception, exactly. Just There's something off about their interest in our biological makeup. The questions their scientists ask focus heavily on our neurochemistry, stress responses, pain thresholds. And have you noticed how they never discuss other species? Nora had noticed. Despite repeated inquiries about other intelligent life in the galaxy, the Arcadians always redirected the conversation. Keep investigating, but be discreet. That night, unable to sleep in her assigned quarters, Nora decided to explore the science complex where their hosts had been conducting joint research projects. The building was mostly empty, with only a few Arcadians working in labs. She nodded to them as she passed, maintaining the appearance of a casual stroll. As she rounded a corner, she heard a sound that made her blood run cold, a cry of pain that was distinctly non-Arcadian. Following the sound to a sealed door, she used the access code Lieutenant Patel had discreetly obtained earlier. The door slid open, revealing a laboratory filled with containment units. Inside each unit was a different alien species, some humanoid, others more exotic. All showed signs of experimentation. Surgical scars, implanted devices, monitoring equipment. And all looked at her with eyes that held the same emotion, desperation. Before she could process what she was seeing, Dr. Jackson appeared beside her, his face grim. "I followed you," he explained quickly. "I found their research database. The Arcadians aren't just scientists. They're collectors. They find developing spacefaring species, gain their trust, learn their weaknesses, and then experiment on them." Nora finished, looking at the imprisoned aliens. "Are they planning the same for us?" A voice from behind answered, "Not exactly the same, Captain Chen." They turned to find High Envoy Silara, flanked by several larger Arcadians with weapons. Gone was the friendly demeanor, replaced by cold calculation. "Your species is particularly resilient and adaptable. We've been monitoring your development for some time. You'll make excellent additions to our military forces, once properly conditioned, of course." "You're slavers," Nora said, disgust evident in her voice. "We're survivors," Silara corrected. "The galaxy is harsh, Captain. We do what is necessary. Your species will serve a greater purpose under our guidance. Humanity will never submit," Dr. Jackson declared. Silara smiled, an expression that no longer seemed benevolent. "They all say that at first, but they all submit eventually." As Nora and Jackson were surrounded and their communicators confiscated, Nora managed to discreetly activate the emergency beacon hidden in her uniform, a signal that would warn the Pathfinder, and through it, Earth. The Arcadians escorted them to a detention level beneath the city, where they were separated and placed in cells similar to those holding the other species. Through the energy barrier of her cell, Nora could see rows of similar containment units extending into darkness. "The conditioning process begins tomorrow," Silara informed her. "Your crew will follow, and then your homeworld. We've done this many times, Captain. Resistance only makes the process more unpleasant." Left alone in her cell, Nora closed her eyes and thought of Earth, of oceans and mountains and cities filled with people who had no idea what was coming. The Arcadians had clearly done this before, perfecting their techniques on countless species. But they had never encountered humans before. And they had made a critical mistake. They had shown their hand too soon. As the hours passed, Nora formulated her plan. The Pathfinder would have received her signal. Commander Ellis, her second in command, would follow protocol. Retreat to safe distance, send a warning to Earth, and prepare for whatever came next. In the adjacent cell, Dr. Jackson caught her eye and nodded slightly. Even in captivity, they were not defeated. Not yet. Because what the Arcadians didn't understand, what no entity who had never visited Earth could truly comprehend, was that humans had been testing themselves against extinction since they first walked upright. They had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and their own self-destructive tendencies. They had clawed their way to the stars not because it was easy, but because it was hard. and they did not take kindly to being caged. As the lights dimmed in the detention center, simulating night, Nora Chen made a silent promise to both her captured crew and to distant Earth. The Arcadians would learn exactly what they were dealing with. Tomorrow, diplomacy would end, and something else would begin. Humanity awakened. Morning in the detention center arrived with the harsh blare of alarms. Nora was already awake, having spent the night observing guard patterns and testing the limits of her confinement. The energy barrier flickered as 4 Arcadian guards appeared, accompanied by what appeared to be a medical specialist carrying equipment. "Your assessment begins now, Captain Chen," the specialist announced. "Please do not resist. It will only cause unnecessary discomfort." Nora stood perfectly still as the barrier was temporarily lowered. The moment the first guard stepped through, she moved, faster than they anticipated. 15 years of combat training unleashed in a blur of precise strikes. The guard dropped, his weapon clattering across the floor. The others reacted quickly, raising weapons, but Nora had already seized the fallen guard's device. Not a weapon, but a control unit. Pressing what she hoped was the right sequence, she was rewarded with the deactivation of all nearby cell barriers. Dr. Jackson emerged immediately, tackling the medical specialist. From other cells, the imprisoned aliens watched in shock as chaos erupted in the detention block. "We don't have much time," Nora shouted, disarming another guard with a swift kick. "Jackson, can you access their systems?" The scientist was already at a control panel, his fingers flying across the alien interface. "Their systems are remarkably similar to ours." Arrogance on their part. They never expected prisoners to have access. Alarms blared louder as more guards rushed toward the detention block. Nora turned to the other alien prisoners, who were cautiously emerging from their cells. "We're leaving," she told them, using the ship's universal translator she'd managed to keep hidden. "Anyone who wants freedom, come with us." A tall, insectoid being stepped forward. "The Arcadians have held my people captive for generations. We will fight with you." Others joined, beings of various forms and physiologies, all victims of Arcadian exploitation. Together, they formed an unlikely resistance force, using the guards' own weapons against them as they fought their way through the complex. "Captain," Jackson called out as they reached a communications hub. "I've accessed their network. The Pathfinder has retreated to the edge of the system, but remains on standby. And there's more. The Arcadians have already dispatched ships toward Earth." Nora's blood ran cold. "How long?" "They have faster drives than ours. 3 weeks, Earth time." "Can you send a message to the Pathfinder?" Jackson worked frantically at the controls. "Yes, but it won't be secured." "Do it. Tell Commander Ellis to return to Earth immediately. Full emergency protocols." As Jackson transmitted the message, Nora studied the facility schematics he had pulled up. "There," she pointed to a large hangar. "They have interstellar vessels there. We're going to steal one." Fighting their way to the hangar level was brutal. The escaped prisoners fought with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose. Several fell, but the group pressed on, driven by Nora's relentless determination. They had nearly reached the hangar when they were cornered in a large atrium. High Envoy Solara appeared, flanked by dozens of guards. "Impressive, Captain Chen," Solara said, genuine admiration in her voice. "No species has ever orchestrated an escape of this magnitude. It confirms what we suspected about human potential." "It's over, Solara," Nora replied, weapon raised. "Call back your ships." "I'm afraid I can't do that. Your world has resources we need, and your people will serve us well." Solara stepped closer. "But I can offer you and Dr. Jackson positions of privilege. Help us understand your species better. Make the transition smoother, and you'll be treated with respect." "Respect?" Nora's voice was dangerously quiet. "You imprison innocent beings, experiment on them, plan to enslave entire worlds, and you speak of respect." Solara seemed genuinely confused. "It is the way of the universe, Captain. The strong survive by using the weak. We've done this for thousands of years. Every species eventually accepts their place. Not humanity, Dr. Jackson stated firmly. We have a different philosophy. Solara sighed. Then you leave us no choice. Take them. Alive. The others can be terminated. As the guards advanced, something unexpected happened. The building trembled, and distant explosions echoed through the complex. The lights flickered, then died, plunging the atrium into darkness before emergency lighting activated. A voice came over the facility's communication system. Commander Ellis of the Pathfinder. Attention Arcadian leadership. This is Commander Ellis of the United Earth vessel Pathfinder. Your orbital defenses have been neutralized. Your communications network has been compromised. Release Captain Chen and her team immediately, or we will continue dismantling your infrastructure. Nora couldn't help but smile at the shock on Solara's face. Impossible, the Arcadian whispered. Your ship is no match for our technology. You underestimated us. Nora replied simply. A common mistake when encountering humanity for the first time. What the Arcadians couldn't know was that Earth's apparent technological inferiority was partly intentional. After centuries of science fiction warning about first contact scenarios, humanity had developed a doctrine of strategic technological reserve, never revealing their full capabilities to unknown species. The Pathfinder, like all Earth ships, carried weapon systems more advanced than their general technology suggested, and Commander Ellis had used them precisely. Solara's composure cracked slightly. This changes nothing. Our fleet is already en route to your world. One ship cannot stop them. Your fleet is the least of my concerns, Nora said coldly, because right now, Earth is receiving our warning, and you should be very afraid of what happens next. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Solara's features. You cannot defeat a force you know nothing about. Perhaps, but we've had thousands of years of practice fighting enemies we know nothing about, including ourselves. Nora took a step forward. Call back your ships, Solara. This is your only warning. Or what, Captain? You'll destroy our world. Humans claim to be better than that. We are, Nora agreed. We don't destroy worlds, but we will liberate them. At that moment, a single tear slid down Nora's cheek, not from sadness or fear, but from the weight of what humanity would now be forced to become. That tear marked the death of mercy. Solara saw it and misunderstood. You see, emotion, weakness. This is why. The Arcadian never finished. Nora moved with calculated precision, her strike rendering Solara unconscious. The guards hesitated, then found themselves surrounded as more sections of the detention level released their prisoners. Within hours, the balance of power had shifted dramatically. The Pathfinder had indeed employed technology the Arcadians hadn't anticipated, not just weapons, but advanced cyber warfare capabilities that had been systematically dismantling their networks. From the commandeered Arcadian command center, Nora opened a channel to Earth. The response came from Admiral Rice of the United Earth Defense Force. Captain Chen, we received your warning. The Sol system is now on full war footing. All civilian ships have been recalled. The defense fleet is deployed. The Arcadian ships will not reach Earth, Captain. I've dispatched the Third Fleet to intercept. They're carrying the Prometheus Protocol. Nora inhaled sharply. The Prometheus Protocol was Earth's most closely guarded secret, a weapons technology developed but never deployed, capable of disabling any known drive system without destroying the vessel. Admiral, the Arcadians have been doing this for centuries. There are dozens of species they've subjugated. With your permission, I'd like to coordinate a multi-species liberation effort. The Admiral's expression was grim. Permission granted, Captain. Earth stands with you. The days of Arcadian exploitation are over. The weeks that followed transformed the galaxy. Earth revealed itself not as the naive newcomer the Arcadians had anticipated, but as a formidable defender of liberty. The intercepted Arcadian fleet found itself suddenly powerless, their drives neutralized by technology they couldn't comprehend. On the Arcadian homeworld, revolution spread as imprisoned species were freed, and the general population, many unaware of their leaders' activities, learned the truth about their empire. High Envoy Solara stood trial before a coalition of species, including humans. When asked if she understood the charges against her, she could only stare at Captain Chen. "You shed a tear before attacking me," Solara said, still confused. "I thought it meant weakness." "That tear wasn't weakness," Nora replied quietly. "It was mourning for what we had to become to stop you. Humanity preferred peace, but you gave us no choice." 6 months later, Captain Nora Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned UES Liberator, watching as representatives from 27 formerly subjugated species signed the Galactic Concordat, a mutual defense and ethical exploration agreement. "They're calling it the Chen Doctrine," Dr. Jackson said, joining her at the viewport. "Peaceful exploration, technological transparency, and absolute resistance to oppression." Nora watched the proceedings with mixed emotions. "I never wanted a doctrine named after me." "No one ever does," Jackson replied. "But humanity needed to define itself to the galaxy. And you showed them how." Below, the representatives finished signing the document. Among them were humans, standing not as conquerors, but as equals, defenders who had proven themselves when called upon. "The Arcadians thought they understood us from our broadcasts, our culture, our history," Nora said softly. "They saw our compassion and mistook it for weakness." "A common mistake," Jackson agreed. "They never understood that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our adaptability. It's our capacity to change," Nora finished, "to become what we need to be when faced with injustice." Beyond the viewports, stars stretched into infinity, no longer just points of light, but homes to civilizations now linked in common cause. The galaxy had awakened to a new reality. Humans had arrived on the galactic stage. And with them came both an open hand and a raised shield. Because while humanity preferred peace, the Arcadians had taught the galaxy an important lesson. When a human tear falls in the face of cruelty, it doesn't signal surrender. It signals that mercy has reached its end, and justice is about to begin. The end.